Um, why don't you go first with your first book, then I'll go with mine, and then we'll go back to you for your second, and then back to me for my second.
Okay, we can do
Sound
that.
good? All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
All right. Just want to introduce Tom with Mad Reads, Mad Read Comics, and Pressing Issues, Press and Clean business. And we're just going to do a little book review. Hit it, Tom.
Hit it, Tom. So I was thinking about, I mean, there's so many good books that have come out in the last few years. But two brand new from a brand new publisher that I'm really liking a lot of their works. But the two I was going to touch on, first one is The Resistance. Michael Straczynski, with Diodato artwork. And I don't know if people aren't familiar with Diodato. He started making a name for himself a few years back on a Incredible Hulk run. And I've loved the guy's artwork ever since. So when I saw that Straczynski and Diodato were on the same book, I was like, well, heck yeah, I got to check it out.
Did he do that cover too? Because that cover is pretty sweet.
You know, I don't know if he did the cover or not. That's a good question. I didn't look. No, he did not do the cover. He did a variant cover for the same book, but this is not the variant.
So who's on that cover? Does it say?
A name that I don't recognize, Raza, Rahzzah.
I'm not familiar either.
Yeah, yeah. The cool thing about this book, though, it's let me see if I can so, you know, we have the coronavirus going on, or it has been going on anyway, kind of shut the whole world down for a bit. But this book came out like right at the beginning of it, or at least the sample of it did. And this whole first issue is about a pandemic that hits the whole world.
Crazy.
It is crazy because there's no way they could have written it after COVID. It had I would say the script had to have been written before COVID. But it's really weird how when I first picked up, these guys, AWA, they put out like some samples in a Upshot Now book. And you know, a lot of the retailers got these. So I decided I'd read through it. And when I got to the story for Resistance and it mentioned the pandemic, I was kind of shocked. I was like, wow, that's really odd. But the other than that, I mean, the story is great. The art is good. I don't really know how much I should say without giving away too much of the book, though. Check that out.
Yeah, I just thought I'd pull it up.
It's a global disaster. You know, and it has, I mean, obviously during these times, it has a touch of realism to it in the beginning. And it kills, long story short, it kills off, you know, many people, most of the world population. And anybody that survives the pandemic, or not everybody, but a lot of the people that survive the pandemic end up with different kinds of powers. And that's kind of where the book ends, but the reading up to that point is just, it's excellent. The writing is great. I mean, and you really can't expect anything less from Straczynski. The guy's a great writer. The art, I think, is excellent. One of the things that cracks me up is, I want to say it's the president in this book is a likeness of Ed Harris, if you're familiar with Ed Harris.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's and I'm sure I can't get close enough to show you, but it cracked me up when I was reading it. Oh yeah. See if we can see this.
Oh man, it's like a still photo almost, man.
Yeah. But like I said, the writing is excellent. The whole first half of the book is it it's realistic, really realistic actually. If you had a global pandemic that was killing people in the hundreds of millions range, and what people may or may not do to survive. Um, and like I said, it was just timing. Timing was everything on this book, I think. But uh,
It's
it's
kind of
definitely not a
like
kid.
Contagion.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely not a kid-friendly book. It's but there's a lot of substance to it. I like it. It's not the same old, same old. It's not like a zombie apocalypse. It's not a. So far, it's not just a superhero story. And the other cool thing I like about what this company is doing is AWA. They also have Frank Cho, I believe, is on board with these guys now too. Michael Straczynski. There's a lot of big names, but they are trying to keep all their titles in the same world. So if you read all the titles, you'll get a bigger story, but they are compartmentalized enough to where if you just want to read one title, you could just read one title. You don't have to read everything else.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's all through this publisher, and they're doing like a world building.
That's exactly it. Straczynski calls it the Alex verse because the guy that one of the major players with AWA, his name is Alex. I don't remember the guy's last name, but he had this vision for a comic company that would do all these titles taking place in the same world, some of them at the same time. So like I said, you could either go through all the titles, and believe me, I've read 4 or 5 of the titles. They're all really good. And get a wider view of this universe, or you could just stick to 1 or 2 titles, and the stories themselves will stand alone. You don't have to read anything else.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, the art on all these look awesome, man.
Well, and it's funny. Of course, I'll let you do your review after this one, but the next book I'm going to do a review on is actually Red Border from AWA as well. But everything you see there, all those titles so far, I've been reading them. I've been keeping up on them. They are excellent, great storytelling. They have got an excellent lineup of writers and artists doing these books.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I'm not as familiar with this publisher. Is how new is it?
Brand new, brand new. So the sample books that us and other retailers got, I think, hit would have been February.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're really new.
Yeah, put me down for these ones, man. I want to check these out.
Yeah, they're good. The one that isn't listed there, which is kind of a bummer. There's also a book that they're doing. It's called I think it's called Devil's Highway, and I was able to read the first issue of that. Again, great book. And I know this is supposed to be a single comic review, but so far with this publisher, man, I cannot say enough about the writing from these guys. It's excellent.
Yeah, I noticed that the Resistance was very dialogue heavy. The panels look very similar to like Morrison panels, where you have the art uh, more of just a background, and the story is the dialogue is just really
There,
heavy and
and you know
upfront.
what? That's one of the cool things I do like about it. There is a ton of dialogue in these books, and every one I've read so far too. It's great. Like I said, the art is good, but I can't read a comic ongoing unless the dialogue is good, unless the story is good. You can have great art, but if the story sucks, it's not going to keep me interested. Um, you got to have a little bit of both, and the better the story, the more I'll get into it.
Right.
So yeah, it's a great story. Like I said, I wanted to do it on this just to put these guys out there so everybody gets familiar with the name AWA and their titles. Um, but I don't want to go into the book too much without giving a lot away. I mean, already telling about the pandemic and how many people it kills gives a lot away. But going past that would be definite spoiler alerts. But
So,
I should say it's a great read.
so if someone wanted to start up within this world, which book would you suggest starting with?
Man, either one of the two I have here, either Red Border or Resistance. Although Devil's Highway is a little bit more edgy. But yeah, one of these two, Red Border or Resistance, I would say. Resistance probably would be the one I would start with.
And age-wise, you would say what, 18 over?
So far Resistance isn't that bad. I mean, I would say teen for sure. 14, 16 years old. Some of these other ones like Old Haunts, Archangel, Hotel, those are definitely for more of a mature audience.
Okay.
There's some pretty gruesome ongoings in some of those. The language, it's just a lot more adult related content.
Yeah. So you would probably rate Red Border Resistance like PG-13, Hotel, Archangel, Old Haunts, maybe like R.
So Resistance maybe a PG-13. Red Border would be up there a little bit more. I mean, there's some nudity in there. There's some just flat out murderous scenes. But like I said, we'll get into that one after yours. But
Okay.
for sure, Resistance is probably the most tame out of all of those right there. Year Zero maybe. Resistance, I would say if you're like 14 years and up, and you like kind of the sci-fi versus reality, or not versus, sci-fi becomes reality. Really, it's an excellent read. If you don't want to read just another superhero book, if you don't want to read a zombie book, if you want to read something a little bit more grounded that has um, um, I, I don't really know how to put it. More intelligence to it, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So
There's
yeah,
more
definitely.
to it.
So someone who's like, I want I'm more of a novel reader and I want a good storyline and maybe something that's going to open me up to a new world, kind of like Game of Thrones or Hunger Games, or something that's going to have a whole
For
fleshed
sure,
out. Uh,
for sure. Because
yeah,
it's well written. It's intelligent writing. Um, and like I said, it kind of touches on real world issues, or what could have become real world issues, I guess.
yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Put all of those on my pool. I'll pick those up. I don't know. This week, I want to go by and see you guys. I haven't seen you guys forever.
Yeah, well, so just a word. All of these, so we got the samples out, and most of those contain like issue number 1 or issue number 2 from different titles. All of the first issues of all of these books have not been released yet. We got these
Okay.
two. They have. Oh, never mind. The wife, the one that knows it all, just told me that
Okay.
they have.
I don't
Yeah.
know why I'm telling you. Tell Christy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. She says so. I guess all the number ones have been released. Um,
Perfect.
and I will tell you that after reading the first issue on most of those, man, I am aching for the second issue on almost every single one of those. And like I said, Devil's Highway.
That's awesome. Yeah, looking at these covers, they look pretty sweet. Are they have they said anything about putting out any kind of special edition covers or any
So they haven't. But what is funny is I got to the end. I read Resistance again because the sample that they give you is all black and white. So I wanted to read it in color, right? Because when they actually did the real release, they released them in color. And I want to say, was this the one? No, maybe not. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong one. Oh no, this is the one. So you know how books, when they're released, the bottom of that title page of the copyright page, they usually have a bunch of numbers: 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right?
yeah.
And depending on whatever number that ends at, counting down from 10, is what printing that is. So I just noticed when I opened up the actual number one that I got in, it's kind of got the same thing at the bottom of the inside cover. It counts down from 10 to 1. So we know this obviously is a first print, but it leads me to believe if they're putting that on there, that there may be other variants, other prints in the works, second prints, third prints, whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you so they're new, but I haven't really heard a whole lot about them. Have you heard any kind of like press or fanfare come
You
out about?
know, I have not. And the only reason I knew of them is because, like I said, they sent all the retail shops those samples. So and while Christy and I were locked away in the house for 2 weeks on quarantine, I picked up those volumes and started reading them. I thought it was really cool that they sent it out to the retail stores so we could get a feel of what the story's like, what the art's like. So that's when I actually started reading them. So this was probably the beginning of March, mid-March, when I actually started reading their stuff. Before that, I had no clue who they were.
Yeah, and it looks like they're printing them on some like heavy duty glossy paper.
It's not though, really. I mean, I wouldn't call it heavy duty. It's I would say it's pretty much the run of the mill glossy comic paper you see in most books right now.
Okay.
So,
Sweet.
but I
Yeah.
have noticed they collect fingerprints very easy.
Yeah. Yeah, that I've noticed that with some things too, man. Um awesome. AWA. Yeah, I can't wait to hear about Red Border. All right. So I'm going to get into my book and both the books I chose are more comedy than anything else.
Right.
And with everything going on, I feel like I've been reading a lot more stuff that's just comedic,
Right.
where I just need a
Need a
laugh.
laugh.
Yeah. And this one I grabbed out of a dollar bin and I didn't even it just looked interesting. Um I'd never heard of it before and I was like, well, I'll check it out. It's pretty violent and
Yep.
it's called Pretty Violent.
Right.
So
Yep.
so this is an image book. It's written by Derek Hunter. Um and he also does the pencils and the inks for it. Oh, and he wrote it with Jason Young. I don't know if that's any relation to Scotty Young.
That was my first thought, only because looking at that cover,
It is
it,
very Scotty Young familiar. I mean, it
it
is
is.
like it's like adjacent, like Scotty Young adjacent.
Right. Right.
Like if you were a fan of Fairy Tale or
I
what am I
hate
thinking?
Fairyland.
Fairyland. I hate Fairyland. Then you would definitely be a fan of this.
Yeah. Nice.
Colors by Spencer Holt. It looks like Derek Hunter did the cover, the main cover, and then you have on the number one at least you have a B cover from Ryan Otley and Nathan
Oh,
Fairbairn.
Ryan Otley. Cool.
Yeah. So it's a lot like I Hate Fairyland, where you have someone who you have a kid who's in a world and they're kind of out of their element. So this kid acquires superpowers that is like Superman type superpowers, where they're invincible, right?
Okay.
But they have super strength, everything, and they get into this world of superheroes. But just like a kid, doesn't really know what's going on, and they're kind of naive.
Right.
And so it starts out with her, thinking that there's this superhero, which is like a version of She-Hulk
Right.
that has gone crazy, and she's attacking this kid. It turns out that the kid is a mad scientist, and she's actually trying to catch him, and she's been trying to catch him for 20 years. And then she does go crazy and starts going after the girl who let the mad scientist get away.
Huh.
Um,
Wait.
it's
So back up. So
Here.
the girl that gets the superpowers, she's not the one that's been going after this mad scientist for 20 years.
No, no, no. So the girl that gets the superpowers is this one from the cover.
Oh,
Um,
a young girl.
yeah, this young girl, and she's like, hey, I'm the new superhero on the scene, and she doesn't really know what she's doing. So it starts out with her just stepping into this scene where an older superhero looks to be attacking this young kid.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and it goes on from there. It's a lot of adult humor, a lot of puns. This is definitely like light R, I guess I would rate it for in terms of cartoon, because everything is kind of cartoony.
So
So the
basically,
art,
don't let the cover fool you. You take your kid to the comic book store, and your kid is 6 years old. You're not going to want to get this for
not at all, not at all. Yeah, you want to. This is an adult book. A lot of cussing, a lot of violence. Um, there's a scene coming up here. So yeah, like this guy rips this person in half. You
That's
have
almost a Incredible Hulk Wolverine reference right there.
yes, yeah, and that's the thing. Every character in this is a parody of something.
Okay.
It's a parody of another superhero kind of character. Um, but yeah, it's pretty gruesome. It has a lot of cussing in it. The number one, it starts out with her like she's really trying to help, but she just can't seem um to get into the right situation. Like every time she tries to help, it's either hurting an older superhero that's actually doing something, or it's like accidentally letting a bad guy go, kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I think we actually have a copy of that here, so I'll have to read it. It looks cool. I think
oh yeah,
Christy
you
would
have to
definitely
read it,
like it.
man. It's the artwork's great. It's very uh reminiscent
Oh,
of
Christy
that
just told me
Scotty
she's
Young
got them.
art. What's that?
Christy just told me she's got them. She's got pretty
Nice.
violent.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I need to add the rest of them because I only have the number one.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, tell her that if she's got the rest of them to add them to my pool.
Oh, she's got them in her collection. I guess we don't have any like. Oh, she said she'll check.
Okay. All right. Yeah, if you got
So
them, add them to my pool. But yeah, I got to find the rest of it, man, because I'm telling you, this was in a dollar bin. I was just like, oh, it
it kind
looks.
of seems like Scotty Young might have opened up a whole new genre of
You know, I was when reading this, I was thinking about that too because it is like it's like adult cartoon,
right. It's like
where
Saturday morning cartoons for adults.
yeah, like Saturday morning cartoons for adults. Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. You know what I mean? Because you have the violence, you have references to sex, you got the cussing. I mean, it
Right.
hits all notes.
Yeah, I'll have to
Yeah.
check it out. I didn't know Christy was collecting that, so I'll have to give it a read.
Yeah, you definitely have to check it out. It's a great book. I was just laughing the whole time reading it. Um, it's the artwork is, like I said, it's reminiscent of Scotty Young, but it definitely has its own style.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It doesn't, I mean, you're right. Like, the Scotty Young reference comes in as far as it's cartoony, but there's definitely a difference in style
Yeah,
uh, from his artwork.
yeah. And I just going through this, I wasn't as familiar with Derek Hunter, and it really made me want to go and check out more of his stuff.
Yeah, Christy just showed me a thing about Jason Young. She pulled up on her phone. What did it? Oh, he's one of the developers of I Hate Fairyland.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Well, and this is an image book, so it it makes sense that it would all be under the image banner.
Still begs the question: is there a relation there? I mean, do
Is
you
it?
think?
Yeah.
Huh? Nice. Yeah, I'll check it out for sure.
Oh, okay. Lost connection. There we go. Yeah, man. Yeah, I liked it. And
It,
also, yeah, that's another thing. When I was reading, I was like, this is right up Christy and Tom's alley, man. Christy especially. I was thinking she would really like it.
yeah, yeah, that is really up Christie's alley. I mean, I liked I Hate Fairyland. I think most people that know me know that I am definitely more of a independent reader. I mean, I'll still read the superhero books. Um, one of the titles I read for years and years was Amazing Spider-Man. I really got a kick out of Ultimate Spider-Man when it first came out. The Wolverine books. But as I got older, I just found myself wanting a little bit more than just superheroes. So uh, I think most of the time that, especially creator-owned books, regardless of what publisher it's from, are generally more well written. I don't know what it is, but there's more story behind them. There's more oomph. There's more meat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and I think when a label or publisher allows the creator to really do their thing, like do what they want, you get um, with a little bit of oversight, you get a better quality of book. You have
Well, I mean,
um,
yeah, it makes sense because if it's a creator wants people to like their book, they put their heart and soul into it. Whereas, if you're a new writer on an ASM book or one of the new X-Men books, basically all you're doing is picking up the torch, um, from old creators and stories that have already been written and kind of trying to put your stamp on it. Um,
yeah, and you see the best stuff coming from like those editors that really let the creators do their thing, but just kind of step in when they're needed. They
right,
they step in to help out with, if there's deadlines that need to come in, and the creator just needs a little bit of help with that. Or, I mean, they're not really changing the vision of the book. They're more just there to help keep them on track, and maybe provide assistance with with like what an editor was supposed to be doing, since they started, just editing, like
right,
going,
right,
checking out the dialogue, making sure that you have your all of your commas in the right place, your spelling done correctly,
right, right.
mm, and
Yeah,
then hooking them up with the right people that they mix well with for doing that lettering,
right,
and if you have like someone who's a writer and you're searching for an artist, putting an artist that's going to mesh well with the theme of that book.
right, right. Exactly. But that's one of the cool things I really like with AWA is I know I already went over the uh, the complete universe really. Um, and the reason they went to Straczynski is because they consider him a world builder. So even though all these different books are, as far as I can tell, are creator-owned stories, the one thing that AWA has asked them to do is get with the writers of these other titles and make sure down the line, if we can cross them, we're going to cross them. So make sure you're keeping up on what all the other writers with this company are doing, because sooner or later, things are, it's going to mesh, it's going to come to a head, or you're going to have storylines cross. So you have to know what all the other writers are doing. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. All right, so your next book is Red Border, another
And
AWA book.
Yep. And I'll go into this one a little bit more than I went into Resistance. Resistance was hard to talk about only because you talk about too much, you can give so much away. This one is, you could talk, even the first issue, I got all the way to the end, and I'm just thinking, what the heck is going to happen next? It's basically this book starts out, and I believe it starts out in Mexico, and you have some I guess 20 somethings. It is what they look like. Kind of trying to stand up to the criminal enterprise in certain states in Mexico, and going to the police and trying to tell them what they've seen, as far as maybe somebody was assassinated in the street. Again, definitely not adult, or definitely not kids. And a girl from this group of these 20 something adults sees something that she probably should not have seen, goes to the police. Well, automatically there's a hit put out on her. Hitman show up at the house. They take out all these people's friends, and her and her boyfriend escape and have to make it through the desert into the U.S. illegally, of course. They have to cross the border, all while being hunted uh, by this drug kingpin's hitman. And it kind of shows what they go through trying to get across the border. End up meeting your basic, I don't know, almost a beach boy type or slash farmer boy, supposed to be your good looking blonde hair, blue eyed farmer boy, with the tan kind of guy. And he saves their bacon and ends up at their house. And I'm not sure, but I think it turns out that this guy's family, he saves these people running from Mexico, takes them to his house, I think in Texas. And I'm pretty sure that this guy's family are cannibals, and the only reason he saved them was to bring them to the house so they could kill them, cook them, and eat them.
Oh shit!
Yeah. So
that's jacked up.
Yeah. So these poor people. I mean, they're running from hitmen. They're trying to get into the U.S. illegally. They get saved by some guy that looks like he might be a nice guy. Come to find out, he may be a cannibal. Just keeping him in the house so he can kill him. It's a pretty messed up book so far. Like, it's again, I mean, it does touch on a lot of realism too. They're trying to get across the border illegally, get help from this kid that you're showing right now. And so far, it hasn't really touched a whole lot on him. I'm waiting to see what he does more in the story. But again, a lot of dialogue. You can see there's a lot of dialogue in these books.
Yeah.
Well written. There's suspense. There's gore. There's action. And it's Jason Starr, Will Conrad, and Ivan New. I think it's Nunez, but I'm not sure. Maybe it might just be Nunes. I'm not sure. Are the guys that are doing this book. And you can see by the art. The art's great. The writing is excellent. Everything about this book is good. And if you asked me to keep going, I would probably keep pulling AWA books out of the stack and going over AWA books.
No, that's awesome. And it reminds me of the old Vertigo days when you had Gaiman and with like Books of Magic, and then you had Morrison and Grant, doing
Right?
like Swamp Thing and the what was the other one? The one that Grant was writing. Um, I can't remember off the top of my head now. And then you also had like Preacher, back in there as well. And so it's like where it's really driven by the writer, but just complemented by the art.
Right, right. So it's funny you mentioned Preacher because Garth Ennis is another one of the guys that are on board with AWA right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that should raise a lot of eyebrows.
Yeah, I think so. Especially since I mean, it seems like these guys are giving the writers and the artists basically free reign. I think.
Yeah.
Um,
I wonder who he's pairing up with artist-wise.
I'm not sure, but I'll throw a couple names out there of the list of people that are working on these books. You got Reggie Hudlin, Margaret Stoll, Greg Hurwitz, Frank Cho, Peter Milligan, Tommy Lee Edwards, and Garth Ennis.
Wow.
So, I mean, you guys and Straczynski, Mike Diodato. You've definitely got some talent going on with this new publisher.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Cho and Ennis, I mean, that's right
Right?
there. You've got some great writers. Yeah, that's awesome. It's I think they're doing it kind of like how uh who am I thinking of, the publisher that did uh Aftershock. Kind of like how Aftershock started just bringing in all these good artists and writers, from the industry to really push out their first few books.
Well, and I think that was the thing that brought Image back from obscurity. Really, is the fact that they started doing creator-owned books.
Yeah.
Titled. And as well as I do, and a lot of other people over the past few years, Image has come out with some great titles, some
Oh, amazing
excellent
titles. Yeah.
books. And it almost seems like AWA might have taken a cue from them as far as creator owned, letting these guys put out what they want to put out, but AWA is going a step further and trying to make sure that if they ever want to get to this point, that it is all that it can gel one title with another, which I think is cool as hell.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Maybe I'll reach out to some of the AWA people, and maybe I could get an interview with a editor or something.
That would be cool. I have a feeling. It's always cool to give new publishers like this, especially when the stories are good. It's nice to get their name out there. I have a feeling when business gets back to business as usual. Um, I don't really think it's going to take long before these guys are going to become a household name in comic book readers, especially people that read more independent stuff.
Yeah. No, I agree. Just hearing about it, it makes me really excited to get into some of these books.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
All right. Awesome. So my last book, if I said Deadpool writers, who would you say are the top?
Deadpool writers?
Yeah. Who would be your top writers?
Oh man, I don't know. That's hard.
There's been so many
No,
of them.
honestly, I've got to say one of the most current, Scotty Young.
I
I think
agree. Yeah,
he did a
Scotty Young would
great
definitely be
job.
up there.
Oh, he did an awesome job.
Yeah, he was great. he did a great Deadpool, but I think, one thing that people often forget, and they they don't really put him in with one of the great Deadpool books, Brian Posehn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he did this Deadpool book, and it just makes me laugh every time I read it. And I've read it multiple times. It's so freaking funny, man. And it's his humor in the book, but he definitely gives you that the Deadpool character. So it's not a detraction from the other books,
Right.
but it's just has a lot of his humor in it. Um, I was I was just reading it earlier when I was thinking about books to do. But let's see. Let's get. I
What
gotta look.
issue is that?
So it was a one shot. It's Deadpool the Gauntlet.
Didn't read it. But some of the
Yeah.
panels looked really familiar, so I thought maybe. But yeah, I don't think I read Deadpool the Gauntlet.
So yeah, Deadpool the Gauntlet um starts out like Deadpool, 007.
Okay.
He has his Deadpool fights. He's going after, trying to save the girl in this helicopter. Um, he's getting beat up and shot and uh and then it's got like all of your Deadpool kind of tropes. He saves the day, um, by doing some goofy Deadpool thing.
Right.
And the guy gets shredded in the
I see
back,
that. That's
yeah,
awesome.
in the back of the helicopter.
That is
you know.
awesome.
But then they add in these panels where it's like a total, he's got the girl and it's kind of like in Kingsman, at the end where he goes with the girl.
Right, right. You
Um,
know, it's kind of funny because I'm not a regular Deadpool reader. And I don't know why, because almost everything Deadpool I've ever picked up, I've enjoyed. Deadpool, Spider-Man was great. That newer run from Scotty Young was awesome.
that whole run was so funny, man. I mean, it's every book had me dying laughing.
Right?
And the new run is pretty good too. The new writer, I can't think about off the top of my head. I like him as well, but I gotta tell you, this one, the Gauntlet, is what got me back into Deadpool. Because I honestly, I was a fan of his, but more of a fan from the X Force days.
Right, right. Gotcha.
And yeah, and then I just kind of put it down for a while. And this is a book that got me back into it. So, it goes into from him holding the girl to the panel uh, that gives you like your little background on his stats. It's like the Deadpool stats.
Right, right. I was just reading that.
Yeah. Powers, abilities, weapons of choice,
Alignment.
chimichangas,
Alignment, good-ish.
goodish. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And see, this right here is very Brian Posehn because he's a huge gamer. He's big into D&T. So this does not surprise me, him putting kind of like a D&D stat into the book.
Right.
And then it goes, you get into some real
I
Deadpool humor where she's
just read
finally,
that. I just read that where he said, "Please don't throw up on the mouth in my mouth." That's awesome.
yeah. he does it enough. He does it enough for the two of them.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I'll have to check that out
But
for
this
sure.
this cracks me up. This part over here, she shows him his face, and then she takes off. She's
I'll
like,
go for help.
yeah, nope, nope, nope.
So I'm supposed to look. Nope, nope, nope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
And
good.
then
Okay.
and then what cracks me up, so he totally did this as he started off as a parody of 007, and it goes into a 007 theme. He is the man who goes too far. And then it's only the lyrics for the song.
Oh,
And
good Lord. All they need is the bullet going through the credits.
yes, well, it's coming. See, you got your 007 girls. So,
Nice.
Gary Dugan does the art for this, which is very. I think he did the art for a few of the Deadpool books, and he was doing Marvel stuff at the time.
Mhm.
So it's Ryan Hussein does the story. Dugan does the. I think he did the script, and then storyboards and additional art by Riley Brown. Colors Jim Charlimpidis.
Yeah, say that 10 times fast.
I know, right? Um, yeah, letters VC Joe Sabino. I gotta say, I don't think that the letterists get enough credit when it comes to books. I
Oh,
always
I
like to
agree.
call them out and see who's doing the letters, because if you don't have a good letterist, it's hard to read the book.
Well, and all I mean, not only the letters, but the storyboard layout too. They really don't usually get enough credit either.
Right, but a lot of times the layout is done by the artist. Sometimes it's the editor who puts it together. But I think the letter, it's just like it's almost like a lowly job. The letterist, they get some
Oh,
guy,
poor
yeah,
guys. Lowly
and they
job.
never get the attention I think that they sometimes deserve. Because I've tried to read some books that have had really good art and the story is really good, but um the font is all wrong. The um emphasis on while you're reading it
Right.
is in the wrong place.
Uh,
So
placement is big. Yeah, I agree. I agree. There's a lot of things that can throw up an otherwise good story if your lettering's not great.
that's that's one of my favorite panels, man. Still in the introductions.
And so far it's cracked me up. Like the whole introductory phase of this book is awesome.
Yeah, it is great, man.
Nice. I
Yeah,
can hear
and
the
then
James
you've got
Bond theme. I can hear like a James Bond theme playing
it
in the back of
is
my head right
it
now.
is a total James Bond theme. If and while you're reading it, you'll want to go through the panels and then you'll want to go back and go through the lyrics and put them to that James Bond music because it is hilarious, man.
I'm
And it's a
sure.
lot like in the movie when you have the end scene in the first movie and you have the like concerto of the choir singing, the juggernaut, ju 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 ju
Right.
ju ju ju. But then you start listening to the lyrics, and they're like, "Oh, okay, are they really saying it's the fucking juggernaut? Is that what they're saying?"
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, it cracks me up, man. And I've got to wonder if Ryan, what was the director's name for the movie? Paul Ryan? No, uh, something, whatever. The director, if he got some of the inspiration for that from this book.
So I don't want to interrupt your review of that, but it's funny because editor in chief on this is Axel Alonso.
Yeah.
Uh, Alex Alonso is the big guy over at AWA now. I don't
Oh,
know if
that's awesome. That's a great tie-in, man.
right. Awesome.
Yeah,
Unintentional.
and we didn't even plan it.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
in
I
sync
saw
we
that
are.
name. I was like, hold on, that's AWA.
Yeah, that's a Tom. You and I, man,
right?
we're like two minds.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good thing one of us is a smarter mind than the other. But
Well,
thanks for carrying me, Stan.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I would suggest it, man. Deadpool the Gauntlet. It's hilarious.
I will check it out.
Again, it's a Deadpool book. Marvel they do edit the cussing, but if the cussing's there, they just put like
You
I
got the
think
symbols.
yeah they put
So
symbols
so
or
what is the format on that book? Is that a trade, regular size comic?
it's a regular sized comic, but it's a story. It's like a 5 book story. I
So
think it's five. It
is it
might just
square
be three.
bound
I,
then?
I can't remember. So
Is it
this
square bound or
is
no?
oh, what's that?
Is it square bound?
Um, yes.
It is a square bound book. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's just awesome.
Yeah.
From America with love.
And no
No
backsies.
backsies. That's great. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good. And I would say rated R. I guess if you have a mature reader, maybe PG-13, um, or like a hard PG-13. But I would go more like a rated R.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I read, it seems like anymore. So, and like I said, I don't usually read the much for superhero books anymore, but I've always been a Deadpool fan. So, uh, obviously, I read the Scotty Young run. So, yeah, I'll check this out. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, and I just reading this, I wish that they would put Hussein in or give him some more stuff to do. Bring him in for some other kind of like I would love to see a Hussein Squirrel Girl. Although Squirrel Girl is more like I think they've been going more towards the younger crowd with Squirrel Girl, but I wouldn't mind seeing um like a PG-13 R kind of Squirrel Girl, where she's more kick ass and with the jokes, you know,
Right, right.
or bringing him back to or bringing him in to do a reboot of uh Gwenpool. I
Okay,
mean, there was a scene in the I think it was the last Deadpool book with this new writer. It might have been the last one or the first one off the new writer series where Gwenpool comes in and she gives Deadpool her like pet. That's her kind of sidekick pet. And she's like,
right.
take care of him because I don't have a book to bring him with me on anymore. So
Nice,
they it was a
nice.
total like bust on Marvel. Like, why aren't you still writing for this character?
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. You know what? I mean, this was a cool idea, Stan. I think if you're up for it, man, hit me up, once every couple weeks or whatever, and I could do this all day. As
I
far
I love it, man. Let's do it.
there's
Yeah.
so many good books I've read from I would say just from like 2000 probably 16 till now. So many great titles and I've mentioned some of these titles to people and they're like, "What? No, I had no idea."
No, I'd
Um,
love to. Yeah, let's do it. Let's make it a regular thing. Maybe
yeah,
we could even add in a all kids version one point.
we could do that. We could do that. Christy
Yeah.
is more of the G-rated reader, I think, except for I Hate Fairyland, of course, and well, actually, maybe she's not the greatest. She reads a lot of grim fairy tales and stuff like that. So,
Yeah. Well,
um,
and it doesn't have to be the G. It can be like the way I do it with the club is anything rated teen up to teen plus.
okay,
So, I mean,
okay,
that
that
covers a
opens it
lot.
up a bit.
Yeah.
Sure, that opens it up.
Yeah, this was fun, man. I'm glad you did those AWA books, man, because I'm really interested in those,
You
and
know,
I'm serious. Yeah, throw them in
that
my pool. I'll pick those up.
yeah, it's I thought that that they definitely needed a shout out. It's for a new publisher. It's great art. It's great writing.
Yeah. Well,
I think
and
I've read
I've
one book.
noticed that a lot of publishers, like new publishers now, and I don't know if it's that they're getting the funding to do it or that it's the appeal of bringing in a creative team that really wants to do their own thing and they want that freedom. But like they come out the gate just hot, man. Like Aftershock came out of the gate hot that with um
Animosity.
animosity and
Yeah. Another great read.
yeah, yeah, and great art, great writing. I mean,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And then
I
you
you
had
know
Boom came out of the gate hot too,
Boom's
man.
doing a lot of good stuff. IDW. I'm not a big IDW reader. I have to admit. Yeah, I don't like all the Transformers, GI Joes crossover type things, but IDW's come out with some great stuff. Boom, Scout Comics. If you haven't read any Scout, definitely check out Scout. Scout's got some good stuff out
Yeah,
there. A lot of these smaller publishers, I mean, they have great books, and you know what I think it is. I think new publishers are giving the readers more credit for being more intelligent. It's not the same run of the mill villain versus superhero. Superhero saves the girl, superhero saves the city. These people that are writing now are not only touching on reality, um, but they're actually, I think they're trying more to yank human emotions. You know what I mean? They want to get the reader involved. They want the reader to be like, oh crap, I can't wait till that next issue so I can see what. Kind of like the old the cliffhangers, and the films in the 50s. They would always end on a cliffhanger, and you're like, what the heck? Now I got to wait for a week. Well, now we got to wait for a month. The
right.
thing is, though, in between, when you're reading these books, they're good. It's a good read. They're intelligent. They're well written. Um, I like the direction that comic books are going nowadays, and I still like Marvel and DC. I mean, those guys are the godfathers of comic bookdom, but I really think that those guys could take a cue from some of these smaller publishers right now.
I agree. Yeah, they're really doing it right with the content, the art. Yeah, they're doing some good stuff.
Yep, yep.
Cool, Tom. Well, this was fun, man.
It was fun.
Yeah. All right. I'll stop recording.